232. Two, 3, 2. I will sing of my Redeemer and his wondrous love to me. On the cruel cross he suffered, from the curse to set me free. Sing, oh sing of my Redeemer, with his blood he purchased me. On the cross he sealed my pardon, paid the debt and made me free. I will tell the wondrous story, how my lost is made to say. In his boundless love and mercy, he the ransom free again. Sing, oh sing of my Redeemer, with his blood he purchased me. On the cross he sealed my pardon, paid the debt and made me free. I will sing of my Redeemer and his heavenly love to me. He from death to life hath brought me, Son of God, with him to be. Sing, oh sing of my Redeemer, with his blood he purchased me. On the cross he sealed my pardon, and the debt and made me free.
Please be turning to the 8th chapter of the book of Hebrews. A very good chapter of introduction to our lesson at 11 o'clock. Hebrews chapter 8, just 13 verses. Now the things which we have spoken, this is the sum. We have such a high priest who is set on the right hand of the throne of the majesty in the heavens, a minister of the sanctuary and of the true tabernacle, which the Lord pitched and not man. For every high priest is ordained to offer gifts and sacrifices, wherefore it is of necessity that this man have somewhat also to offer. For if he were on earth, he should not be a priest, seeing that there are priests that offer gifts according to the law, who serve unto the example and shadow of heavenly things, as Moses was admonished of God when he was about to make the tabernacle. For see, saith he, that thou make all things according to the pattern showed to thee in the mount. But now hath he obtained a more excellent ministry, by how much also he is the mediator of a better covenant, which was established upon better promises. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been sought for the second. For finding fault with them, he saith, Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Egypt, because they continued not in my covenant, and I regarded them not, saith the Lord. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws into their mind, and write them in their hearts. And I will be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. And they shall not teach every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for all shall know me, from the least to the greatest. For I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. In that he saith, A new covenant, he hath made the first old. Now that which decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away. Let us pray. Father, we're grateful for such a beautiful Lord's Day. We're thankful for good health, be able to be about our lives and to be able to be here at this assembly this morning. We pray for those who are not able to be here. We pray that those problems can be removed and health can come again and they can take their place back at the assembly. We're grateful for the avenue of prayer. It's not limited to this building. We can pray any time of the day or night, anywhere we are on the face of the earth as thy children. You promise to hear us and to give us those things that according to your will. We pray, Father, as we come here to this place this morning, that our hearts are sincere and needing the fulfillment of the needs that we have. We pray, Father, as we need forgiveness and we need to be sure that everything is right with Thee, that can be accomplished. We pray that the vacancy in the lives of some who have lost loved ones can be filled and renewed with Thy Word and your help. We pray, Father, that as we come here today, that we recognize that the true house of God is not a building, but is a spiritual building where each of us take our place, we do our part, we render our opportunities and responsibilities, and we give Thee the credit as the God of this universe. Through Jesus, we pray that we can have a good day. Your name be glorified. Souls might be reached and the kingdom be advanced. For your blessings on us as we study. For we pray in the name of Jesus. Amen. Last week we were in the 6th chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes, and we were talking about the evil disease that Solomon was discussing that was common to the human family. And after studying that chapter and thinking about what all was involved, it's quite evident that the evil disease of this chapter is man's trust in uncertain riches. You know, the problem with trusting in things and material blessings and money, it's here today and gone tomorrow. There's no permanency to it. The devil has blinded us in America today. The evil disease, materialism, has canceled out a whole lot of people's lives. This piece I've hold in my hand came out of the East Side Church Bulletin in Columbia. I don't know if you know anything about the history of that congregation. Well, I do. East Side was where Elmer Lusk preached. Elmer, still alive, knowing that congregation, knowing Elmer, one of the elders' wives, I helped Elmer preach her funeral a few years back. She had attended at Farmington. And if there was ever a congregation that tried to do what was right, I believe East Side was one of them. Well, in this article, it's entitled, "You Can Be Rich." You know, somehow or another, we have been convinced in America that all the money you make, the better off you are. Well, what is true riches? If you were to want to be wealthy, which way would you rather be wealthy? Would you rather be rich with $1 million and absolutely bottom of the line bad health? Which would you rather have? Money or good health? I think if we're thinking, we'd rather have good health. You can have all the money you want, but if your health's not in account, and you can't even exist from day to day without every kind of doctor's appointment and sickness, you're not very rich. A person with good health but little money is much better off than a millionaire with bad health. Then there's another way you can look at you're rich. You are rich if you have true and loyal friends. True and loyal friends. Genuine friendship is something that money cannot buy. No value can be placed upon money concerning having good friends. You know, another way in which we're rich besides money, you're rich when you have true peace of mind. True peace of mind. You know, you can have every material thing you could ever want, but if you're walking around scared to death somebody's going to steal it, or somebody's going to cheat you out of it, and your peace of mind is destroyed because of the influence of things, the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, is not associated with money. And then there's another way in which we can be rich without money. You know what it is? You can have the hope of heaven and everlasting life burning within your soul. And there's a lot of people don't even think about heaven, don't even think about eternal life, because their grubby fingers with filthy lucre has decided for them that's what makes them rich. The rich fool of Luke 12, as we saw last week, he had everything he could want, but he went he went to hell that night. He lost his soul. He wasn't very rich. America needs to wake up. We need to wake up today in the world in which we live. Realize that the disease of uncertain riches has eaten the heart out of a whole lot of people. Now, verse 12 of chapter 6 said, "For who knoweth what is good for man in this life? All the days of his vain life which he spendeth as his shadow. For who can tell a man what shall be after him under the sun?" The question is asked, who knoweth what is good for man in this life? I don't know of anybody that knows that except God. He knows what's good for us. Jeremiah 10 said that it's not in man that walketh to direct his own steps. We don't know what's best for us, but God does. And he knows that if we will listen to him, if we will take the great lessons that are taught, not only here in the book of Ecclesiastes, but all the rest of the Bible, that we can live life useful. Now, chapter 7 is a little bit different. Ecclesiastes 7, we can't possibly accomplish all 20. Trying to get my bearings here. Chapter 7 has got 29 verses in it. No way we can get through 29 verses, so let's shoot for about half of that. And due to the way we're set up here with the internet and microphones, let's read the first 14 verses. Now notice a comparison is being made time after time after time. A good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of one's birth. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. For that is the end of all men, and the living will lay it to his heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by the sadness of the countenance the heart is made better. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for a man to hear the song of fools. For as the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool. This also is vanity. Surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart. Better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof, and the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. Be not hasty in thy spirit to be angry, for anger resteth in the bosom of fools. Say not thou, what is the cause that the former days were better than these? For thou dost not inquire wisely concerning this. Wisdom is good with an inheritance, and by it there is profit to them that see the sun. For wisdom is a defense, and money is a defense, but the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. Consider the work of God, for who could make that straight which he hath made crooked? In the day of prosperity be joyful, but in the day of adversity consider. God also hath set the one over against the other, to the end that man should find nothing after him. Now, wisdom and folly is being compared in this passage of Scripture. One by one. Very helpful thoughts if we'll just let it sink in. The first one in verse 1 says, a good name is better than precious ointment. If you remember when the babies were little, A&D ointment was used for diaper rashes and everything imaginable. It's good stuff. I hadn't thought of A&D ointment in many a year, not having been around very many babies lately. I guess they still use it. But A&D ointment is precious, good stuff. Well, Solomon said that a good name is better than precious ointment. Neosporin is pretty good ointment. What's the old arthritis medicine? Ruth Hastings gave me a tube of arthritis medicine, and it's good stuff. Good ointment. But here, Solomon said that a good name is better than that, whatever the ointment might be. You know, if you got a good name, you don't cheat people. You don't lie. Your name is not associated with the beer joints. You can walk down the streets of life and not worry that somebody's going to walk up to you and accuse you of the bad deal or the misrepresentation. A good name is a whole lot better than precious ointment. Interesting thought, isn't it? Well, another one, second one. A good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of one's birth. Why would the day of one's death be better than the day of one's birth? If you live life right, if you try to do what the Lord wants you to do, if you're ready to face God in judgment, the day of your death is far better than one's birth, because that little boy, that little girl was just born. Knowing what I know about the last 70-some years and how things have gotten worse and worse and worse, I feel sorry for little children being born into the world today. It's not a good thing that they're going to face. It's going to be tough. Because they could have had a mother that was a drug addict. And the drugs is already in the little baby's blood. The day of one's death is better than the day of one's birth. Lots to be said there. The world is getting darker, getting sad. All the things we could say, but let's go on. Number 3, it is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. For that is the end of all men, and the living will lay it to his heart. Why would the house of mourning be better than the house of feasting? Think about it a little bit. You know how many people going through the experience of mourning over a loved one have cause to see that their lives are not right. And they turn away from that funeral home and that graveside determined that they're going to live better than they had. That's happened to many a person. There's many a person standing there or sitting by the graveside of a loved one or a friend, and it dawned on them that through the mourning and the tears that are being shed, that there needs to be some necessary changes made. And if you read some of good funeral passages in the Bible that's used often. Job 14, for example, it's used by the Masons. It's used by gospel preachers. The 14th chapter of the book of Job, it's got the suggestion in it that you're to turn from this one that has died and go back into life and try to live better. The days of mourning is better than the days of feasting, because the feasting usually winds up in gluttony or abuse of the beverages of alcohol. And we're living in a time when feasting, I'll mention this, I don't have any specific thing in mind, but I've been around a long time and preached a whole lot of funerals. Do you know what one of the customs, it's not necessarily just in his part of the country, but East Tennessee, it was a natural custom. At the day of mourning, the day of the funeral, was when the whole family, the funeral home boys were invited, preacher were invited. They just had a whole mass of people in the home place for a great big meal. Great big meal. And I remember talking to a number of funeral home boys at those, they had a name for it. I forget now what they call the name of the meal. It's probably a traditional thing up there in that part of the country. But the eating of that meal was part of the procession of funeral. I'll be very frank with you. When I go to a funeral or somebody in the family has passed on, I'm not too hungry. I'm saddened by it. Your body tends to resist food when you're sick or you're sad. But here Solomon made a comparison. It's better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. For that is the end of all men, and the living will lay it to his heart. Then he goes a little bit deeper. Sorrow is better than laughter. For by the sadness of the countenance, the heart is made better. Now, I don't know where you've been all your life, but I know where I've been all my life. And there's a lot of truth to that statement there. Sorrow is better than laughter. Because you know what sorrow and sadness will do? The countenance of the heart is made better. Godly sorrow enters into the picture. If true sorrow for sin that results in a change of life is involved in the picture, the heart's made better. The first time I went to a funeral and heard a joke told, I could have crawled under the bench. And you can tell that's exactly what the boy up front was doing. Silly, ridiculous, mortifying, disgusting. That's how it affected me. The passing of a loved one is serious business. And sorrow is better than laughter, because that sorrow can cause the heart to be made better. Another one, the heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth. You know, the media of TV has taught us that we need to be entertained, that we need to be told jokes, we need to have mirth and laughter. And we have let the TV teach people a whole lot of things that they didn't have any business really knowing. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning. The heart of fools is in the house of mirth. I could go in a lot of different directions here. I'm not going to. I'm going to stick to the book. In fact, verse 5. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for a man to hear the song of fools. You know, the Bible tells us to reprove, rebuke with all long-suffering and doctrine. That if we are corrected when we're wrong, it's better to hear that correction than to hear the song of fools. I wonder sometimes if parents really listen to what the content of some of the songs that our young people are singing and listening to. I don't hear as well as I used to, but even some years ago, I'd be traveling, out visiting, doing something. I'd have the radio on. And you hear the song. You turn it up just a little bit. And your ears can't believe what that song is saying. There are songs that are teaching our young people to have a wicked, immoral life. And we aggrandize that sort of person. There's a lot of songs that are sung that are decent and good, but they're sung very, very suggestive, very, very bad. What did Solomon say? It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for a man to hear the song of fools. And then he illustrates how a fool acts. Verse 6. For as the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool. This also is vanity. Did you ever burn thorns in a fire? They don't have to be under a pot. But that's, I guess, what back in those days they'd use fire to heat pots up. You take a bunch of thorns and you throw them in fire, they pop and crackle and carry on something fierce. I can still remember the cackling and the heckling of some of the boys going down the halls of high school, of how they would cackle and make fun of and pick at, and one poor girl, I felt sorry for her. She didn't have anything to do with the way she had been created. But boy, they had a good time making fun of her protruded jaw. I felt sorry for her. They didn't feel sorry for her. They made fun of her and called her names and everything else. Here Solomon is dealing with some practical things that get right out there where people live. Verse 7, surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart. Oppression comes in many different forms. Prejudicial ideas, attitudes. But if you're not careful, you can upset people by the way you deal with them. And here Solomon says that oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart. I don't think we need to say too much about that last one, because we know that happens. We know that the gifts that the government has given people in order to get into their certain programs has deceived many a person. First time I heard that advertisement, I thought, man alive, what in this world? You mean to say you're going to get a government kickback because you involve yourself in a certain program? That's what it was. A gift destroys the heart. If you've been given something, you tend to keep your mouth shut and just let it go. Say, well, I'm given that, so I guess I better not say anything. Well, that's what Solomon's talking about. And he goes on, better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof. And the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. I don't mind working. Most of us who are older have worked hard all our lives, and I rejoice as you see the end of a job that's just about done, and I'll go talking to myself. And I'll say, well, the end's not far away now. I just about got it done. Just going to be behind me in just a little bit. Well, we rejoice at the end of certain things we go through. Better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof. And the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. Now, that one's loaded too. Time flies. You have any comments you'd like to make on that one? Surely that turns your rock over a little bit. Okay.
That latter part, when I read that, for a man to hear the song of food, first comes to mind to me is when Jesus said, woe to you and all men speak well of you.
Okay.
You go out here, you make a point to be friends with the world instead of thinking what the Bible says. I think that's all right in line with exactly what Jesus said about that.
Okay. All right. Very good. Anybody else? This book Proverbs and the book of Ecclesiastes, written by Solomon, they've got some in-depth, wise truths that makes you do some thinking. There was a verse there we didn't mention. Let me look at it just a little bit. Verse 10, we're running out of time. Say not thou what is the cause that the former days were better than these. The former days were better than these, for thou dost not inquire wisely concerning this. Now you take that the way it's written, and that's got something to think about. You know what we have done most of our lives? We said, well, 30 years ago it was a whole lot better than it is now. Or you say, well, when I was coming up as a boy, we had it so much better than we have it today. Well, did you notice Solomon's statement and then his reproof right in the same statement? Say not thou, what is the cause that the former days were better than these? That's the question. And immediately, in the same breath of inspiration, he answers that question. He says, well, thou dost not inquire wisely concerning this. What's the old cliche? The good old days. We used to talk about the good old days. Do you know how some of the older generation survived the Depression days? You know how they survived it? You know how they did it and why they were able to do it? They knew how to work. Why? You work all day for 10 cents, 20 cents. But when they went home, they didn't have to go to the grocery store and buy everything under the sun. They made it themselves at their house, in the kitchen, in the backyard. They took care of their own problems. They didn't have to pay somebody else to do it. We have slowly but surely developed a society that doesn't know how to do a thing. They can't fix nothing. They don't know how to cook at home. They don't know how to raise a garden. And we have let the movement of our day and time cause a lot of people have a lot of hard times when it's really not, it doesn't have to be that way. Then there's one more, and we'll quit. Excuse me. I see why you say that, but at the same time, in my lesson this evening, working on this progressiveness that we are going through today. And the best way that you can make progress is to go back to the Bible. Go back to the way Jesus did things. Go back to the apostle. Go back to the early church. We can't bury the past in that sense. And I hadn't thought in that direction. Karen, you said it there. There's a lot of different things involved to discuss. And I got the outline typed up. It's ready to go for the evening sermon. And we're going to call it the progressiveness of progression and where it's going. One more, and we'll stop. Did you notice he said, for wisdom is a defense, and money is a defense, but the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. We have defensive areas of life. And here Solomon says that wisdom is a defense. It'll shore us up. It'll give us strength. Go on. Says that money is a defense. It can be used constructively. But if you compare wisdom and money together, he says, for wisdom is a defense and money is a defense, but the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. We need to be wise people. Jesus made it clear the difference between the wise and the foolish man was that one heard what Jesus said do, but didn't do a thing about it. The other one not only heard what Jesus said do, but he did something about it and created a foundation to build his life upon. Lord willing, we'll pick back up here next Sunday and try to get on through chapter 7 in our Bible study. Thank you very much for your attention.